You are now tuned in to the BS3 Radio YouTube channel. This week we got a fun topic. I mean, this is going to be probably back and forth. It's going to be a fun conversation. We're doing the top five athletes, comedians, and music artists of all time. And this is our opinion. So, but that's what makes this fun. You can jump in and give us any comments that you have. You know, it's always interactive on what we do here. So let me give a shout out to my dad. Thank you for coming on with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
We got Al High with the Rockets throwback fitted on.
Hey, had to get it.
We got Courtney. What's going on?
What's going on, everyone? Glad to be back once again with you guys, and let's get it started.
Yeah, man. We got a lot to get to. So we're doing, like I said, top five athletes, comedian, music artists. This was a tough one right here. Like I said before we got started, I got the legal notepad out. You know, I got a lot of space and a lot of notes we was taking, but it's gonna be a fun conversation. So we can start it off with athletes. We could go with the oldest person if you're ready. We'll start with the elder statesman. So we're gonna go top five athletes of all time. So you can go ahead and give your top five, give the reasons why. Then we'll comment on it. But you can go ahead and kick us off with athletes.
Okay. So basically, you just want my five. You don't want me to go in depth right now. Just give you the list, right?
No, you can go ahead and go in depth right now. And even if you have, honorable mentions, because I got a couple honorable mentions. It was hard to limit it down to five.
It's tough.
It's hard, man. You think of all the athletes and different eras and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can go ahead and go full-fledged into your top five.
Okay. Well, my number one is MJ. Okay, Michael Jordan. We discussed him in depth with the Last Dance. So I don't want to go too much into that because that speaks for itself. We go. He's six-time NBA Finals champ, six-time NBA Finals MVP, 5 times league MVP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want to go with Michael Jordan, but he's definitely my number one. And just let me qualify this particular pick here, and a lot of my answers, let me qualify because basically, as my son knows, we moved to California in '82. Born in Charlotte, raised in Hickory, North Carolina. So basically, we moved when we were 22, my wife and I. We were dating at the time. We were born the same year, and when we moved out in '82. So basically, we got married that year as well. So when you look at the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area, we happened to land in the Bay Area at the opportune time as a sports fan. I was excited, even though I grew up a Washington football team fan and Atlanta Braves baseball team fan and Philadelphia 76ers basketball fan being on the East Coast. But when we got to the Bay Area, it was like being in heaven because in the 80s, especially the late 80s, early 90s, you had the San Francisco 49ers winning championships. And then in the 90s, you had the 49ers, plus you had the A's, Oakland A's, and then the Raiders. And then early 2000s in the teens, you had the Giants. And then to close out before we came back east, you had the Warriors, of course. So we had a parade like every other year. I mean, we were selling on every street that you can think of. And so just to qualify and that particular answer, baseball-wise, I'm going to go in 4 different athletic categories. So baseball-wise, I got to go with Ricky Nelson Henderson.
My boy.
Man.
I got Ricky, they call him Man of Steel Henderson. Now, we lived in Berkeley, right off of Shattuck, between Shattuck and Martin Luther King Way, and right down from the college. And Ricky Henderson went to Oakland Tech, and plus he had a home on Shattuck, maybe about 15 blocks from where we live. So we always passed by the area he grew up in. So basically, Ricky Henderson, the man of steel. Okay, he played from 1979 to 2003, mainly with the Athletics, also, with the Yankees and the Blue Rays. Those are 3 major teams. He played with 5 different teams. But he had the most steals for his bases in a career with 1406. 1982, Henderson set the record for stolen bases in a single season with 130. He went on to lead the majors in steals 12 times during his career. And in 2001, with the Padres, he hit a home run, which put him on the top of the most runs scored in the career at 2295. That's 2,295. Ricky Henderson also holds the record for walking the most times in a career, unintentionally, with 2129. The 11-time All-Star won, 1990 American League Most Valuable Player, had 3,055 career hits, took home the World Series ring twice, 89 with the Athletics, and in 93 with the Blue Jays. And this is what the president of Oakland A's, Dave Cavall, said, that he, for his impact player, was the greatest athletic of all times, the greatest Oakland A's of all times. And also he's representing the green and gold. Now he's in the head office. He's an instructor at the Athletics minor league system. He has Franchise Day in July the 15th. It's also called Ricky Henderson's Day. He basically was honored on April the 3rd. The Oakland Athletics host the Los Angeles Angels. They named the Coliseum the Ricky Henderson Field. So basically, he played with the Yankees, Blue Jays, like I mentioned, Padres, the Mets, Mariners, and also the Red Sox. His average over his career is 279 with 297 home runs. And like I mentioned before, 1,406 stolen bases. So that's my second top athlete of all time, is Ricky the Steelman Henderson from the Oakland Athletics, Oakland Tech. Number 3, I'm going to go to football. Like I said, I got 4 different athletic categories. Like I mentioned before, I want to qualify. We're in the Bay Area, so I have to go with Jerry Lee Rice Sr. As an all-professional football player, as far as a wide receiver, all time. Due to his records and accolades, he regarded the best wide receiver of all time. Now, watch this as far as when you look at his records itself. As far as score, he scored more points than any other non-kicker in NFL history. 1,256 points. Selected Pro Bowl 13 times, named All-Pro 12 times in his 20 NFL season. He won 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers, 88, 89, 94. Plus he went to the AFC Championship with the Oakland Raiders. Jerry Rice holds over 100 NFL records, the most of any player by a wide margin. He also, far as the top 100 NFL greatest players, Pro Bowl Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame, Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. Final statistics, he has 1,549 receptions, 22,895 receiving yards per reception 14, and also touchdowns 197.
Wow.
Ricky Lee Henderson. First you have Ricky Henderson, Michael Jordan, Ricky Henderson, Jerry Rice, and then I have to come to number 4, which is in the boxing ram, greatest of all time, Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr.
Okay.
Muhammad Ali. Now, he was we all know about his his athletic achievements, as far as 3 times a heavyweight champion, but he was also a gold medal in the light heavyweight division in the 1960 Summer Olympics. He started amateur boxing at 12. He won the Olympics at 18. Turned professional, and he was converted into Islam. Became a Muslim in 1961, and because of his faith or his religious beliefs, after he beat Sonny Liston at the age of 22 in 1964, in 1966 he refused to go accept the draft in the military, and because of religious beliefs, and that way he opposed the Vietnam War. He was arrested, found guilty, stripped of his boxing titles. Of course, he appealed to the Supreme Court, overturned the conviction, and he didn't fight for 4 years because of that conviction. So now you look at not only the greatest of all time when it comes to boxing, but we just had a show regarding civil rights, police brutality, equal rights, segregation, racism. He is a philanthropist when it comes to the consciousness of America, the counterculture of America, African Americans, and civil rights movement. He's an icon. Now, this is something I didn't know until I researched this, but Ali was initially affiliated with Elijah Muhammad, which is the Nation of Islam. But later on, he disavowed the Nation of Islam, and he started adhering to Sunni Islam. Now, Sunni Islam supported racial integration, which was like his former mentor, Malcolm X. So not only is he an icon when it comes to civil rights, when it comes to athletics, but also when it comes to his religion, he disavowed Nation of Islam and went to Sunni Islam because of the racial integration that was very prevalent in the 60s when we were trying to get out of segregation to integration, which was a tremendous step for him. Ali titles, 14 unified title bouts in 35 years. Ring Magazine made him the Fighter of the Year 6 times. Greatest athlete in the 20th century for Sports Illustrated. The fights that are, as far as the most famous fights we like to mention, is Joe Frazier, which is the Thriller in Manila, the first time an actual heavyweight fighter. They had theme songs and theme names for their fights. And one of the greatest fights of all time, the Rumble in the Jungle, with George Foreman. He was also the most watched live television broadcast of all time. And basically, his accolades go on and on. 16 title fights, 56 wins, KO 37, losses 5. Okay, let me round it off. It's really going to surprise you guys. Now I'm going to go track and field.
Okay.
Surprise.
Track and field. And the greatest athlete of all time for his track and field. This was a little difficult for me, but I had to go with Frederick Carlton Lewis.
Okay.
That's singing the national anthem.
Leave that alone.
Okay.
Now, he won 9 Olympic gold medals. He won 1 Olympic silver medal, 10 world championship medals, including 8 gold. His career spanned from 1979 to 1996. Basically, he's the only one to have 3 Olympic. He's the only one of 3 Olympic athletes who have won gold medals in the same individual event in 4 consecutive Olympic Games. The reason I went to Lewis is because of his events. Not only was he a 100-meter record holder, 200-meter record holder, but he also was a long jump events record holder.
That's good.
Now, he holds the world record in 100 meters, 4x100, and the 4x200, while his longest record, a world record in indoor long jump, has stood since 1984. His 65 consecutive victories in the long jump achieved over a span of 10 years in one of the sport's longest undefeated streaks. Over the course of an athletic career, he broke 10 seconds for the 100-meter 15 times and 20 seconds for the 200-meter 10 times. Lewis also long jumped over 28 feet 71 times. His accomplishments led to numerous accolades, including International Associate Athletic Federation, Sportsman of the Year, International Olympic Committee, and also track and field news in 1982, 83, and 84. Now, this is the most interesting thing about Carl Lewis that I really like. He was moved. He ran for the seat for a Democrat in New Jersey Senate, but he was removed from the ballot due to state residency requirements. Lewis also owns a marketing and branding company, which also brands products and service, including his own. Now, we know that he went to University of Houston. He's also there as a coach.
Okay.
And he's been coaching there for as an assistant coach with the Sprinters, and he helped the Sprinters for as their season in 2017, 2018, 2019, claim their second straight NCAA title in the 4x100 meter relay, and he earned back-to-back third-place finishes in the NCAA Outdoor Championship, anchored by a strong performance in the Sprinters, of course, and the relay. Lewis' key role in the Cougars' 2017 men 4x100 meter and relay NCAA Championship. Working with the Sprinters, he has a whole number of people that he worked with. And as far as his accolades, his accomplishment, and what he's doing after his athletic career, I had to bring him in number 5 for the most famous athletes of all time. That's my list.
Oh
Man,
you caught me off guard with the Carl Lewis. You definitely did with that one.
Yeah, that I did.
good.
Yeah, he said Olympian. I thought he might go Usain Bolt, maybe. Something
Jackie
like
Jordan Kersey or somebody. That's what I was thinking about too. Jesse Owens or somebody. But that's a very interesting top 5. Let me give a shout out to Taryn Rodriguez, a huge supporter of what we do. Thank you for tuning in. Leave your comments. So we got top 5: Michael Jordan, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, Ricky Henderson, Jerry Rice, Muhammad Ali, and Carl Lewis. You can see that below right there. That's a very, very interesting list to kick it off. We're gonna go to you, Al.
Right.
Did you? Let me say this. Actually, did you have any honorable mentions? Anybody that you were fighting with in your head, Dad, that you were trying to figure out who to put on the list?
No, I'm straight. I'm cool.
Okay.
He good with his list. I'm good.
Good.
Athletic category, so that way it would be a little more simpler for me.
Well, we think alike. We think alike.
But because he's so recent and he's a sprinter, but Carl Lewis with the long jump, to me, just put him over the top.
Yeah. All right. Shout out to Mocha Bella. Thank you for tuning in. Leave us your comments. Al, you're next up, sir.
All right. So my top 5 athletes, number 1 is Michael Jordan. Hands down, just the GOAT. I mean, best all around team athlete, leader, motivator, 6 champion, go undefeated in the championship 6 times. Come out of it, go play a different sport, and then come back and be on top of your game for 3 more years. I don't think there'll be another athlete that can in basketball world that could do that. So Michael Jordan, number 1. I'm going to throw I flip-flop this one. Number 2 would be, in my opinion, people would say he's the second greatest wide receiver of all time. But in my era, to me, he's somebody I look up to, and that's Randy Moss. I fell in love with Randy Moss on Thanksgiving Day in 1998 when they played the Cowboys, and he had a monster game at Texas Stadium. So there was this flea flicker. Cunningham pitched it, handed off to Robert Smith. Robert Smith threw the ball back to Cunningham. Cunningham bombed it to Moss. And I said, from that day on, Randy Moss took the place of Jerry Rice in my heart as one of the greatest receivers. Long ball, he was the freak. You throw it up to him, Randy Moss is going to get it. He is the reason why we have the phrase called "you got Moss," because of people that he jumped over.
Exactly.
Ben remember this game.
Yeah, right. He is that particular reason over the years. You know, he had the couple of the down years in Oakland because at them times Oakland it was boo boo, and I'm like, man, where is Randy Moss at, man? Don't he want to get out of there? And then he had like a resurgence when New England wanted him, and then came back and scored. And think the 07 year when Brady had the 50 touchdowns, because that was the year they went undefeated. Had Brady not thrown the 50 touchdowns, I think Moss would have got the MVP that year with his 23, 24 touchdowns. So Randy Moss is my second favorite athlete of all time, the freak. You know, he even had my other favorite stat line about straight cash, homie. That was my other favorite. You know, you got Moss and straight cash. My third favorite athlete that I enjoyed watching of all time would have to be Tiger Woods. The 15 majors that he's won, 3 shy of Jack Nicklaus's record. And then most recently, he just won the Masters about, I think it was a year or two ago. So looking at his comeback and his transformation, how he's trying to come over, you know, he had the scandal back in 2010, and then he had the back surgeries. But for him to overcome and to come back, I'm like, man, I'm still rooting for him to get that 18 mark, because at the time I wasn't watching golf. And then one day I was reading all the newspaper articles at 10, 11 years old about Tiger Woods be the first black to win at Augusta National, and at a time when years prior, blacks weren't even allowed at Augusta National, and to come in there and watch it on a Sunday, as I think Tiger was like a 21-year-old, win the Masters, man, that was like one of the greatest things. And so I began following him. I even started getting a video game because I wasn't good at playing Madden football or NBA 2K or I think it was NBA Live.
NBA Live, yeah.
Back then, yeah. I was good at playing Tiger Woods golf. When I was in college, I was beating people playing Tiger Woods golf. People laughing at me. I said, man, this is all man, look, you got to understand, this is what I'm good at, man. Tiger Woods golf. It's a certain art and a skill to swing it. So thank you, Tiger Woods, for just being a trendsetter. That would be my number 3 athlete. My number 4 athlete is an Olympian. And to me, he's considered one of the greatest Olympians of all time, and that's Michael Phelps. 28 gold medals. I'm not, you know, that's probably the only time I watch the swimming is in the Olympics or qualifying. But just the domination of Michael Phelps in the Olympics. 28 medals, 23 were gold medals, and then helped his team break records. And then he flirted with retirement and then came back and dominated again. That's another, that's one of them trend-setting athletes that probably in the swimming realm won't happen for a very, very long time. And then my 5th athlete, I gotta give credit to where credit is due. Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds, 762 home runs. He's the only one who has over 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. And because all this stuff with the steroid stuff going on, he doesn't get his credit. He doesn't get his due, in my opinion. People still talk about McGwire and Sosa. I like Sosa. I like McGwire. But that swing of the bat of Barry Bonds and his dad had a great Bobby Bonds, and then if I'm not mistaken, his godfather was Ernie Banks, or Willie Hayes. One of the two. Willie Mays, yeah.
It's crazy.
And you have that tutelage in your back pocket. So he'd be my number 5. My honorable mention. This brother was a game changer in the boxing world, and I came on late watching him because I'm not big into fighting, and I watch a little bit of it. I hear the ruckus noise. Would be Floyd Mayweather to still be undefeated, and I watched the first fight I ever watched, y'all, was Mayweather Pacquiao, and I'm like, okay, this dude is a defense. Let me sit back and watch this and learn some things, and literally the artistry of the defensive style of fighting and how he just let people just wear out and he just sit back and just dance with you and just to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, dodge this, dodge over there, and really didn't come and just wore the opponent out and play and was really playing like in football where they say defense wins championships. Do a couple knockouts right there, a couple hits right there, and get a couple licks. Was unbelievable. But the backside of Mayweather, the money side, the money team, and how he promoted himself and didn't really need the middleman in there. That the business side of him was just amazing and dope. So definitely would be my honorable mention. Oh, and then my other honorable mention, which she's an up and coming person, is Simone Biles.
Good one. Good one.
That's good list.
That's a good list right there, man. I was thinking about. I didn't even think about Tiger Woods. So man, you kind of put me to shame on that one. Let me hold on a second. Let me scratch out what I got.
That's my list.
Yeah, man, that was a good list. That was a good list. Shout out to Kevin Gray. He said, "Talk about it." Barry Lamar Bonds, the greatest baseball player of all time.
Barry Lamar.
All right, Courtney, you're up next. Courtney Harden.
Man, two good lists. How can I follow that? We got some of the same lists, some of the same people on the list. So let me start with number one. Agree with everybody. Michael Jordan. Everybody already knows how I feel about MJ, the GOAT, the greatest competitor, one of the best, greatest winners. I mean, this guy, we saw it on The Last Dance. For those that forgot how good and how great he is, he reminded you guys how great he was. This guy, like you said, 6 championships, 6 for 6, dominant scorer. This guy just did everything. He won at every level. I mean, he won in college, he won in the pros, he won at Olympic level. So Michael Jordan is to me the greatest athlete of all time. I think it's hands down, no competition when it comes to the GOAT, when it comes to Michael Jordan. Number 2 goes to Muhammad Ali, which was explained. When you have a nickname called the greatest, you know you something else when you're that. Ali, as he said, we talked about his accolades. I mean, in the ring and out the ring. This guy, he fought for social justice. He fought against racism, against police brutality. He was doing this in the 60s in the civil rights movement, where it was really bad back then. So he goes beyond saying his name is great in boxing, and I'm a huge boxing fan. So just to see his record of 56-5 is unbelievable. So Muhammad Ali, I don't have to explain too much about Muhammad Ali. So he is number 2 on my list. Number 3, I'm surprised her name hasn't come up yet.
Thinking about it.
I gotta go with my girl Serena Williams.
I knew it was going.
Number 3. There's no, to me, I mean, for a single sport, a single athlete, she is one of the greatest. If it was for Muhammad Ali, I think, Jordan's the team sport, but Serena Williams, the dominance, the competitiveness. She came from out of 17 years old and has won this many majors. Let me break down the records for you just real quick. 23 Grand Slam titles, the most by any player in the open air, the second most behind Margaret Court, so 24. And she's still holding strong. I mean, she hasn't won in a couple of years. I mean, she left, she had a baby, and still has made it to 4 finals in a row. 4 majors in a row. Some people will say, well, she hasn't won those last 4, but to get there at the age of 37 and 38 and can still be as close as she is, I mean, that's just unbelievable. She was ranked her world number 1 in singles on 8 separate occasions between 2002 and 2017. That's crazy to be ranked the number 1 on 8 different occasions between 2002 2017. That's that 15 years of dominance right there. She reached the number 1 ranking for the first time in July 2002. She held the ranking of 186 consecutive weeks, tying the record by Steffi Graf. She has been number 1 for 319 weeks, which ranks 3rd in the open era. She's pure dominance, and still she's gonna be. I really believe she'll beat the record. So Serena Jamaica Williams is number 3 on my list. Number 4, is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, y'all. Tiger Woods. I mean, Al explained it about Tiger Woods and his dominance. I mean, he had a 10-year run where he was the best athlete in all the sports. And the way he would, if Tiger was contending, if going into a Sunday in golf, you knew he was either going to win or he was going to be second. It was going to be one of the two. Usually he won. So every time on Sunday, if he had a lead, he never relinquished it. I just read a stat. I think it was like he's 100 and something like 112 when he did lead in any tournament going into Sunday. That's ridiculous. That in golf, that's a crazy stat. So he's second in major championships. He owns PGA Tour wins, holds multiple records in golf. So Tiger Woods is my number 4. And number 5, I agree with you, Al. I got to go with Michael Phelps as my number 5. 28 Olympic gold medals, all-time record. He holds a lot of individual events, records. I think his first gold medal, his first medal was, I think it was 15 or 16 years old. So he dominated in 2000, from 2004 all the way to 2016. And, when it comes to swimming, and I think it comes to just Olympics as a whole, Michael Phelps is he's the greatest Olympian of all time. So, yeah, so mine is Jordan, Ali, Serena, Tiger Woods, and Michael Phelps.
Okay. I was gonna put Serena there, man. I was trying, but when I get to my top 5, it's gonna be legendary. Let me put it like that. But Courtney, any honorable mentions? Anybody scratching your head?
Yeah, there was a couple, but the one I thought about was Tom Brady. I really seriously thought I was going to put him in my top 5. He was close. It was between him. It was between Michael Phelps and I had one more. But Tom Brady was 6-3 in Super Bowls. To me, he's up there and is one of the top 2 or 3 NFL players of all time, definitely the best quarterback of all time. So yeah, Tom Brady was definitely one of my honorable mentions. So, and it was we just talked about him too, the track star,
Carl Lewis.
Nope, not Carl Lewis. I just said his name too. Yeah, Usain Bolt. Thank you. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, Usain Bolt. I thought, with him winning as many gold medals as he has won too, with him in track and field, he holds the records in the 100, the 200. And the 4x100. So Usain Bolt was my other honorable mention.
Okay. All right. I like that list. Taryn put in his Michael Jordan, Jackie Robinson, Kobe Bryant, Lisa Leslie, Tiger Woods, no particular order. That's a good list. And that's an LA base. That's an LA base, which is where he is. So definitely it's all based on where you are, kind of what you've seen and what you watch. But to get to my list, let me get out the legal pad here.
Come on with it.
Let's go.
Number 1, man. Number 1 is a clean sweep. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, man. Yeah. We know he's a Hall of Famer. 6 champions, 6 NBA Finals MVPs, the most all time. 14-time All-Star. And when we talk about athletes, this dude had just the freakish ability to be able to attempt that he's going to dunk on you, and then in midair do a layup or jump from the free throw line, and just like he's flying in Air Jordan, jump man. I mean, what he's done for the game of basketball. This is kind of what my list is made up of, is transcenders in the game, and he completely changed basketball. A lot of people grew up following Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was either their favorite player or somebody that they loved or someone that they wanted to mirror their game off of. You think about LeBron. You think about anybody that came in the league with number 23 was because of Jordan. It wasn't because of anybody else. So that's my number 1. He changed the game. His patented fadeaway jumper, his patented ability to dunk on you, to talk trash and then back up the trash. It's one thing to talk trash and then you get blown out or you get crossed over or you get dunked on, but he backed it up. And he was just one of those people that just did not care who it was. Killer instinct, and one of the best. Obviously my best of all time. So that's my number 1. My number 1 is Michael Jordan. My number 2, which I'm surprised nobody mentioned this, Jim Brown.
Woo!
Brown, my number 2. Now, people may say, well, you never seen Jim Brown play. I didn't have to. I seen the highlights. And that was good enough.
Highlights and the stats, right? And that's all you need.
Dude, when you get knocked out, and then you think about the error, the ERA, the error that he had to play in. He had to play in an era where people absolutely hated him. They hated his skin color. You come to the games, he probably got all type of trash thrown at him, all kinds of stuff. Like, you think of the outside stuff, you still was great. Averaging 5.2 yards per carry, the most ever. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's close. I think it's like 5 yards per carry. I'm not sure who it is. I don't remember. But NFL champ in 1964. The biggest stat that stood out to me was he was a 13 in high school. He had 13 letters for football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, and track. Like, if that's not an all-around athlete, honestly, I don't know what is. He was that guy. And you think about how he transcended the running back position. That's why we seen Walter Payton. That's why we seen Barry Sanders. I think Barry Sanders was the one with 5 yards per carry. And that's the reason why we had Emmitt Smith. That's the reason why we had all of those other backs. And he was huge for the running back position, huge for football. We could talk about after football and all the other things that he's done as well. As we mentioned Muhammad Ali. My number 3, I'm surprised nobody mentioned this one either. Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
If you think about the home run ball, which you can talk about Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was he I guess you could say he was an honorable mention, but you think of the era that Hank Aaron had to play in. Think of the hatred that he got. You think of him coming to games knowing that he was the most hated person in the building, knowing he was getting death threats when he was getting ready to break the record. But he ended up with 25-time All-Star, 3,771 hits. People say he was just a home run guy. No, he was 3rd ranked in hits all time. You think about Pete Rose. I don't remember who number 2 was, but Hank Aaron was number 3. He passed Babe Ruth. The record wasn't broken until 2007, like we talked about with Barry Bonds. World champ in 1957. NL MVP, 4-time NL leader of home runs. Hank Aaron, a trendsetter, and was one of those that changed the game. I think I did a couple of book reports or speeches on him. I mean, he was somebody that I cherished growing up, even though I didn't necessarily see him play. So that's my number 3. My number 4, which is kind of in line with some of us, Muhammad Ali. If like Courtney said, if your nickname is the greatest, it's for a reason. And then you back it up. He was one of those that talk trash and he backed it up. Some people talk trash and they can't back it up. He would talk super trash. He's probably the best trash talker of all time. We could put him on that list too. But it did not matter. So Muhammad, 61 fights, 56 wins, the best heavyweight, and in a class with a whole bunch of other top heavyweights. I mean, this wasn't like easy where he just was able to mow through a whole bunch of weak cats. This was hard in the 60s and 70s. Came back, left and came back. So that's my number 4. My number 5, nobody mentioned this one either. Pele, soccer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pele, the greatest soccer player of all time, arguably. 1,281 goals in 1,363 matches. If you think about soccer, that's I don't know what the percentage is. I'm gonna have to calculate that, but he's had a lot of goals in a lot of his matches. Also, he won 3 World Cups. So that's my top 5. Honorable mentions, man. I was trying so hard to put Serena Williams on this list. I was trying so hard. I was trying to figure out who can I take off, who could I wiggle in. But when you look at this, this is the greatest of all time. And I think these kind of categorize, kind of like my dad, I picked somebody from each kind of sport. I was thinking of Tom Brady, but then I was like, is Tom Brady really an athlete? I mean, he's good, but he really when you talk about athletes, is he really an athlete? And I would have to say no. I think he is the greatest quarterback of all time. A lot of great stats. I mean, he lives up to arguably the best. And then let me see who else did I have. Bo Jackson. I was trying to figure out put Bo Jackson on the list. If you think about athletes being able to play both sports, Barry Sanders, Pete Rose. I wanted to put Ken Griffey on there because, as my dad knows, Ken Griffey was my guy. But you look at the best, and I think that's how I broke it down. So that's my top 5. Those are my honorable mentions. So as we look at all of our top 5s, we kind of had some similarities. Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan, and we kind of had differences too. So this is a really good conversation to have because we all grew up in different eras. We all were influenced by different people, and now I'm thinking like, man, Tiger Woods, I should have penciled him in somewhere, but couldn't get him in.
I left y'all all of the obvious ones. I just wanted to be a little bit more out there, a little bit more. But like you said, I thought about Hank Aaron, I thought about Barry Bonds, but I'm like, okay, I mean, they're home run specialists and they have home run records. But when you look at the athlete, that's why I went with, Ricky Henderson because of his athletic ability and everything he accomplished as far as the base running. But one thing I forgot to mention about Muhammad Ali, and I thought I was giving somebody else some room to mention that, but when you're talking about a trendsetter, I mean, this guy, when he started doing the shuffle and that left-hand jab and how he used to dance around
rope-a-dope.
He was innovative when it came to the dancing and the finesse and the float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. I mean, he really was a trendsetter when it came to boxing. And also, I want to mention to him about, like you said, the trash talking. I mean, he was freestyling. When you talk about hip hop, he was spitting that poetry, outside the ring. Not only was he talking trash in the ring, he was also talking trash outside of the ring. And also, he was a successful musician where he received Grammy nominations. That was something I learned that I didn't know. So, plus he, released 2 autobiographies. So when you talk about a trendsetter, I know we had a couple agreements on Muhammad Ali, but that was great. And Serena Williams, that was another obvious one. I gave y'all easy, toss
softball.
Yeah.
Serena, man. Serena would definitely be in my top 10 because everything that she's done in the game of tennis is at the top level. And she had a baby and then came back like nothing ever happened. Like people forgot that she had a baby. I mean, baby's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old at this point.
2 now, at least 2.
So, I mean, like that, the amount of scrutiny that she's gotten in being a woman in a sport that is predominantly foreign or Caucasian, but now you look at Naomi Osaka and these young ladies coming up and really doing their thing. It's I think it's amazing. So, man, very unique list. Very unique list.
And just to add for Serena Williams, 4 Australian Opens, 2 French Opens, 6 Wimbledons, and 2 U.S. Open. Oh, that's just the doubles. That's just the doubles. Now she's a doubles champion, and in her singles, she's got 7 Australian Opens, 3 French Opens, 7 Wimbledons, and 6 U.S. Open. So she's a doubles champion, singles champion. Also on top of that, she's won 4 gold medals. I mean, man, if it wasn't for Ali and Jordan, Serena would be number 1.
That's true. I mean, I don't see any reason why she can't be there because then she's still
she can be there. She still can be there, of course.
And
absolutely.
Nobody mentioned the other thing too. I was surprised. Nobody mentioned LeBron, which arguably, you can talk about that. Nobody mentioned Kobe. So you think about that too. So that's a good conversation. When you talk about NBA, though, that's a whole other story.
Ben, I like how you put in there Jim Brown. I think Jim Brown, wasn't he at the time a fullback instead of the HB? And at the time that was the most popular position, was the fullback position.
Right. You're right.
That's and for those stats like that and those offers, man, you can't beat that. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah, I've seen this one documentary when he basically was saying, yeah, when I got knocked down, I just stayed down for a little while. I wasn't hurting. I just took that quick breather, and then when I got up, I just ran over him some more.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about how other people's game was mirrored after him. You think about some of the moves he had. You compare that to Barry Sanders. You compare that to Sweetness. I mean, Emmitt Smith, like I talked about. So, Jim Brown is always one of those. I think he'll always be on my list, no matter what we're talking about. But let's go on and move right along. Anybody have anything else they wanted to add on to that?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Let's move right along to music artists, which this was a tough one for me.
Oh,
We're not talking about just rap. We're not talking about just R&B. We're not talking about soul. We're talking about all of music, and that's just such a vast majority of artists. So let's kick it off with you, Courtney. Since we went the other way, we're gonna go back the other way. So, Courtney, your top 5 music.
Oh man, this one to me was probably the toughest one. The athletes, because we always talk sports, so we kind of got almost the similar taste when it comes to the greatest athletes of all time. So, top 5 music artists of all time. So I'm just gonna break it down like this: Stevie Wonder, number 1. To me, one of the most prominent figures to ever singing, songwriting, musician. The greatest piano player of all time. I mean, he's got so many accolades. I mean, I can list them all, but I'm just going to say he's a Grammy Award winner, American Music Award winner. Music just feels good to listen to. You can still, and he's been through decades of music. Started from the 60s, and his music is still relevant in 2020. That's 60 years of great music. Mm-hmm. To me, the greatest music artist of all time. So Stevie Wonder is number 1. Number 2, Michael Jackson. I grew up in the era of Michael Jackson. Off the Wall, Thriller, classic albums. Bad. Michael Jackson, just the dancing. Another great musician. The moonwalk. I mean, he has so much. He just anytime Michael Jackson's music comes on, you just want to dance. He's got so many hit records as well. So Michael Jackson, number 2. Another one, it was flip-flop between him and this third artist, Prince. Michael Jackson, Prince, to me, I always argue who's better. I can't never pick. Sometimes I say they're tied, so I'll put Prince at 3. He may be 2A and 2B. How about I say that? Prince, another great musician, artist. Prince, I think I read something. He played 19 instruments, something crazy like that. So, I mean, this guy was so talented. So sometimes if you say that, you're like, okay, he's probably the greatest. So, but Prince is number 3. Number 4, I'm going with Jay-Z. That's my number 4. Yes. My favorite rapper of all time. I think he had at one point he had like 13 or 14 straight number 1 albums. Every time his album came out, it went number 1. So it didn't even matter what happened, like who came out at what time. He had like 13 straight number one albums. I know he's like a 10-time Grammy Award winning. One of the most prolific lyricist of all time. He also actually took his rap career and turned it into a business. I mean, he had the line, "I'm not a businessman, I am a businessman. Let me handle my business." That was his thing. Like he turned himself into a business. So he got a sports agency. He's worth close to like I think almost $1 billion. So him and Beyonce together, power couple that they are. So Jay-Z's number 4. And my number 5 is Mariah Carey. Gotta go with MC. She's one of the greatest voices of all time. That high pitched signature voice. When her voice starts coming on, she starts singing that high pitch. That's a Mariah Carey record. Another one I think she sold over 60 million records as an artist. Like I said, she's had one of the greatest voices of all time. So, and major hits. So, yes. So, my top 5 music artists: Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Prince, Jay-Z, Mariah Carey.
Okay. All right. I like that list. I think that's also very versatile. For me, I was trying to figure out to get a rapper on the list. So, when we get to mine, I'll talk about that. But any any honorable mentions? Anything that was pretty hard for you not to not put on the list?
Yeah, Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle. I mean,
yeah.
my mom would be upset with me if I didn't mention them at least. I grew up with those. Grew up with those records. So those are a couple of Mary J. Blige, one of my wife's favorite artists. So those are some of the honorable mentions.
Okay, all right. Next up, Al, Dr. Al, what you got?
All right, so my top 5, we got to go with the GOAT, in my opinion. It has to be Michael Jackson. Okay, so you have a family when you start in the Jackson 5 and you make a hit with singing ABC 1, 2, 3. then you come back with Off the Wall. Then he set the trend for making videos. Okay, with Thriller. That whole Thriller, that 9 hit album, the 9 songs on that, I think 7 or 8 went platinum. And the brother was so good he can make an album every 4 years. He can go on world tours twice with the same album and before a new album come out. Okay, Thriller is probably like the greatest album ever made. But he even set the bar for making videos. So the brother was just phenomenal musically, gifted and very talented, and worked with so many people. So Mike is the GOAT. Number 2, I'm gonna take it to the church house for just a moment.
All right.
Okay.
Come on.
Let the church say amen. Amen. All right. So I grew up on this group. My mom used to play this group called the Mississippi Mass Choir. And the way the sounds and the melodies that come together, they weren't too high, they weren't hollering at you, they weren't too low. I still play some of the songs now till this day. My favorite album by Mississippi Mass Choir was "It Remains to Be Seen," because every song on there was just dope. But my favorite song on there was called "I Get Excited," and what they did was they invited the audience in to sing, and they're like "Hallelujah," and then they had the acapella, then they had the sopranos. It was just dope, and the choir director was getting into it. He getting excited, and everybody in the audience was dancing. But yeah, Mississippi Mass Choir is number 2. Number 3, I'm gonna take it to somebody I grew up with in high school. It's called Linkin Park. Linkin Park, very instrumental group with the rock and the mix of the pop. And when they did the album with Jay-Z, when they went on tour and did like 6 or 7 songs with Jay-Z, and they did a remix song, one of I think it was called Numb, and they did the remix with Jay-Z. That was dope in my opinion. Yep. And my favorite song by them was Breaking the Habit. I love that song. And man, it's too bad. Rest in peace, Chester, man. Dope group, man. Linkin Park would be my number 3. Number 4, I'm gonna take it back to the church scene where this guy has been the bridge from the church world to the hip hop world. That'd be Kirk Franklin. Now I don't know if Kirk Franklin. I think I may have heard Kirk Franklin sing 5 or 6 times, but he's really been Kirk's been like a bridge of the church to the world. Never forget, I saw him one time. I was 17 years old. We was at a youth conference, and we was on the front row, and he saw me, and he's like, "Where everybody from?" I'm yelling, "I'm from Kansas." No, Kansas City. No, I'm from Kansas. And he's like, "Oh, Kansas." And everybody from Kansas, was a handful of us. We were like, "Yeah." And we were bringing up like 20,000 people. But crazy thing was, he shouted me out, but then my mom met him in the backstage, which was really dope. So Kirk Franklin being my number 4. Number 5, I gotta go to the hip hop R&B scene. We gotta go with Usher. Ladies and gentlemen, and my brothers, Confessions. I think I wore that CD out. It's scratched up, jacked up, man. Thank goodness for these iPhones and Androids where we can go download and we ain't got to worry about a CD scratching. But that whole Confessions CD album was just outstanding. I think, matter of fact, after I scratched, I had to turn off the radio because up here in Kansas City, they played all the Usher songs so many times. I got tired of hearing that stuff. Every station you hearing Confessions, you hearing Let It Burn on the other station. I had to turn off the radio because I'm hearing Usher too much. But that was a dope album.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are my 5. Michael Jackson 1, Mississippi Mass Choir number 2, Linkin Park 3, Kirk Franklin 4, and Usher number 5.
Okay. All right. That is an interesting list. Mocha said, it's an interesting top 5. He does. Yeah, he's got something for everything. And people don't really talk about Linkin Park that much. But when they did that thing with Jay-Z, I was like, hey, this group is serious because they're versatile. They can do some of everything. And that album was dope. So I guess it was just an EP or whatever, but
right, a little EP.
It's a mixture of Jay-Z songs and Linkin Park. So that's a good list. That's a good list right there. Any honorable mentions? Anything that you
man? So if I have to give an honorable mention right now, it'd have to be Kanye West. Pre whatever going on right now.
Everything else, right? First 3 albums of Kanye,
late registration.
Yes,
that was
boy.
And then he had that competition.
Dropout.
Yeah, then he had that competition with 50 Cent on who could sell the most albums. So I'm thinking, man, 50 gonna blow this brother out. Man, no, Kanye was murdered 50 Cent, man, with that. So
I remember that, yeah.
Definitely. That's a good list right there. That's a good list. Let's bring it to Elder Statesman. I can't wait to hear this list because I know you got a vast from now, from back in your day to now. So, let us have it.
Y'all ready for the best list? Okay, now we gotta go with the Godfather before you even Jackson. Now Michael Jackson's on my list, Prince is on my list. Get to them two. You gotta go with the Godfather, James Joseph Brown. Joseph Brown. Yeah, you talking about singer, songwriter, dancer, musician. I'm talking about record producer, band leader. He was the originator, the emancipator. He started all of the. He started a whole different genre of music called funk. And what I like about the Godfather Soul, they call him Mr. Dynamite, Soul Brother number 1, is that he also started out, when you talk about back home in the church, he started out singing gospel. And he started out singing gospel with the famous Flames. And if you haven't seen the movie Get Up, then I recommend you see it. It's a beautiful documentary of his life. And when you look at where this brother came from, I mean, he began, he was a stillborn baby. He didn't even think he was going to make it. And his aunt basically brought him back to life. And then his parents rejected him. And so he grew up, in a whorehouse in Augusta. So you're talking about somebody coming from nothing. His first gig as a young boy, he was dancing on the street corner for pennies. From dancing on the street corner for pennies and living in a whorehouse to becoming the God. And like I said, he started out singing gospel with Bobby Bird, and if you look at the movie, he took him in and allowed him to not only sing with them, but he also developed that particular genre of music from the blues, from the jazz, and then straight to the funk. And what you talk about the originator of the funk, P-Funk, I mean, that's where I'm a funketeer at heart. And that's where, Bootsy Collins, he gave Bootsy Collins his first break as a bass player in his band. And also Bootsy's brother played guitar in his band. And then we know Bootsy and joined in with George Clinton. They was kind of comrades when it comes to the P-Funk. So he basically, started all of it. And the thing about it is that in the era that he came up in, when we talk about segregation and discrimination, I mean, he was a trendsetter when it came to being his own producer and his own writer, and far as his drive to want to be the best. I mean, this man was a lot of his musicians, considered him to be a slave driver, and also his wardrobe was immaculate. He wanted to make sure that they had an immaculate wardrobe, and when they went to a performance, I mean, you're talking about a band that was off the charts. I mean, he brought the best from the horn section, and first band I ever seen that had two drum sets, and they were one drum would take a break while the other one would come in and play. I mean, this guy, just to give you some of the accolades, he basically had 17 top singles, went #1 on the Billboard charts, Billboard Hot 100 charts, far as #1, Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Rolling Stone, the top #1 greatest artist of all times. I mean, James Brown, the Godfather. And if you ever get to Augusta, Georgia, I recommend you go see his museum. He's got a museum in Augusta, Georgia that's off the charts. I mean, me and the missus went, and we just enjoyed it phenomenally. And we just had a good time touring, and also being a part of that legacy and that history of James Brown. Okay, #2. I got to go back to the church. And I'm talking about the one you're talking about. Bridge the gap. He bridged the gap from hip hop to rhythm and blues to gospel, and he brought it straight from Durham, North Carolina, outside the county line. I'm talking Key.
Yes.
You're talking about a talent. I know my son loves him from John P. Key.
Yeah.
I also like to look at the history of the artist as well. But not only was he an innovator and also an originator when it came to that gospel, that contemporary gospel sound, but when you look at the history, he grew up in North Carolina, went to the School of Arts, and went to Salem, but then he moved to California. So now you have that California vibe again. And when in California, he got caught up in the drug game. But while he was also in California, this is something I learned that I didn't know. He also played with Cameo, and he played with Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds.
Really?
So that's what the blue vibe came from, because he was an actual musician playing with some of the best funk bands in that particular era. Then he moved back to Charlotte, North Carolina, and he experienced a violent death of his friend doing a drug deal that went bad. His friend got murdered, and that's when he saw, as Paul on Damascus Road saw that light. That's when he rededicated himself back to God. And at a revival meeting, he gave his life to Christ. And in the mid-'80s, he formed the community choir in Charlotte as the New Life Community Church. He was the founder and organizer of New Life Community Church, and that's where he's still the pastor. And we just recently had him at the House of Hope Atlanta last year, and he still puts on a show and a concert like he did 20 years ago. I mean, he comes and he lays it all out, and he has a beautiful band. And just to give you some history on him, he has 9 children, and one of his sons sings with him now, and another one of his sons actually plays with P. Diddy. So he still has the R&B hip hop flavor within his family. That still is within his genes and his DNA. So in the early 90s, he brought back a lot of awards. He has a dozen of Stellar Awards, 20 Grammy Excellent Awards, GMWA Awards, Soul Train Awards, 2 Billboard Music Awards. So he has a lot of awards when it comes to the accolades and his accomplishment as a musician and as a man of God. I love the way he delivers the word, and he closes on fire. That's #2. #3, everybody basically, the first has already mentioned him, which is Michael Joseph Jackson. Now, you're talking about the king of pop. This young man, a lot of it was already mentioned. He's a singer, songwriter, dancer, an originator. This was the first artist that I knew. I knew that Marvin Gaye had also did some of this, so I would like give him some accolades. But Michael Jackson would sing all of the backup on his albums. So when you listen to albums, the backup singers are actually Michael Jackson. He didn't hire backup. Now, when he went on tour, of course, he had to have backup singers. But because of his relationship with, I'm trying to think of his producer. I'm pulling a blank right now. But she's a well-known producer. You guys know who I'm talking about.
Quincy Jones?
Jones, right. Because of his and Quincy Jones, they were able to form that particular culture and genre of music. And you've already mentioned, as far as the videos, he was a trendsetter when it came to the videos, and also his dancing techniques, the moonwalk. I mean, he made the moonwalk famous. So we just want to give him his accolades, and we had already mentioned him as well. So that's number 3. Number 4, we mentioned him as well. I got to go with Prince Rogers Nelson, better known as Prince. this
Formerly known as.
Yeah,
it's simple.
A songwriter, musician, recording artist, producer, dancer, filmmaker. I mean, when you look at his films that he also starred in, I mean, they was just off the chart. Purple Rain. When I hear that song now, it still makes me emotional, not only from the movie but from his performance. And I can never forget his performance on Arsenio Hall when he did Purple Rain. I mean, it was such phenomenal, emotional, when it comes to a musician that touched your heart. And also his first album, when I was first introduced to him, by the name of Prince, he actually performed on that album. He played every instrument. So when you talk about a musician of musicians, I mean, he was off the chart. And his performances, when it came to his dancing and his when it comes to his musician and how he performed live, his actual shows were just off the chart. So I won't go into any more depth about him, but definitely Prince is number 4. Now I was kind of wondering about number 5, and then my wife, she had to pull my coattail, and she said, "Well, you better mention a female." So I'm like, okay. I'm thinking about, of course, Whitney Houston. I mean, when you talk about phenomenal voice,
Legend.
Off the legend, when it comes to her performance and all that she has done when it comes to the music world. I was thinking about her, and then I said, well, maybe an actual artist that's a part of a group. So I'm thinking about Gladys Knight. I was saying in the Pimps. I'm saying, okay, Gladys Knight and the Pimps, maybe that would be a good one. And then, of course, when it comes to the female artists, I know you guys have already mentioned her, but I had to go with the Queen. I went with the King. And the
I gotta go with the Queen.
Queen. Got to go to the Queen, which is none other than Aretha Lois Franklin.
Wow.
Now, you're talking about a phenomenal songwriter, actress, pianist, civil rights activist. We all know, C.L. Franklin, her father, was a man of God who broke the bread of life with fire, with conviction. He preached all over the country. So she came up also in the church singing gospel, grew up in Detroit, Michigan, New Bethel Baptist Church. So she grew up singing in her father's church. But then when she took that turn and went to sing R&B, I mean, her voice just brought tears to your eyes, when it came to her ability and respect, RESPECT. We talk about a trend-setting song coming from a female in that era. said we're demanding respect, regardless of segregation and also the bigotry and the hatred and the racism, and also when it comes to women being considered lower class citizens. She brought it from every comes to the R&B world. So I had to go with Aretha Franklin. Someone else had mentioned her as well. That's my top 5.
Okay. All right. Very versatile, but also paying homage to the GOATs, man. Brown, John P. Key. I got Michael Jordan on there. That's a mistake.
Another GOAT, though, man.
Who was your third one?
Michael
Jackson. Yeah, okay. The wrong Michael. Great list right there. Great list. Okay. We're gonna bring it to minds, kind of similar to my list in sports is, and it was a long list at first. I had to skim it down, but it was paying homage to the guys that started it. And my number one, which I don't know a lot about him, but from what I've researched and heard, he is the father of rock and roll. That's Chuck Berry. People talk about Elvis.
Yeah.
Okay.
People talk about Elvis all day, every day. Elvis is great. But he I'm not gonna even say he borrowed. He was given a lot of this stuff from Chuck Berry. And if you talk about rock and roll, you got to go back to the guy who started. Oh, good.
No, I was saying he stole it. He wasn't giving it to him. You got to go to Netflix, check out Cadillac Records, man.
Oh, man.
Chuck Berry, the father of rock and roll. I had to pay the respects to him at number one. You think about rock and roll, how big it's became. You think about Jimi Hendrix. You think about all of these guys, Rolling Stones, all of these rock groups. And it was stolen from him and given to a white face. That's what people don't want to hear, but that's the truth. So that's my number one. My number two, which my dad mentioned it, I think someone else mentioned it, Aretha Franklin. That voice, man, that voice is just one of those when it like pierces your soul. She could be singing her ABCs and it'll like ABCs I've ever heard in my life. I mean, she's one of those people, that voice, that strong voice. And like everybody, like my dad mentioned, she was in the church. She started to sing, respect and everything that she's done. Rest in peace to her. But that's one of those iconic artists that go down as one of the greatest. So I had to put her right there. Number three, people already mentioned it, Prince. And what I found, hopefully this is correct. He played 27 instruments. I don't even know how that's possible. I didn't even know there was that many instruments. But Prince, his artistry, when you talk about music artists, in my mind, I'm thinking what people can do some of everything. They have the musical genius to be able to do some of everything and play music, dance. I mean, like bring you in, when they perform. And Prince is just one of those guys, all around great artist. And also he was kind of one of those, at least that I knew, that took hold of his music. Like, this is mine. This is not something that Epic or whoever else, you guys can create this music. So don't tell me what I can or can't do. And he still got a vault of music, which I don't know if we'll ever hear it or see it. But I definitely have to go with Prince. Number three, just the artistry, being able to play music, being able to do so many different aspects of music. And also he's one of those where he started creating artists around him and building up artists. And he didn't have, at least from what I know, he didn't have a lot of famous artists on his tracks. It wasn't like Prince featuring Michael Jackson or Prince featuring, some of these other artists. Dad, tell me if I'm wrong, but he was just one of those that seemed like that was on his own path, creating his great music. So, that's my number three. Number four, definitely the king of pop, Michael Jackson. If you have people at concerts falling over, fainting. They're not even and it goes worldwide. It goes worldwide. This is one of these artists where you could go to any country, probably. You can go to a hut in South Africa and they'll know who Michael Jackson is. They'll know. In the Jackson 5, everything, he's one of those iconic artists that will always go down as one of the best. A lot of people mirrored him. You talk about Usher, you talk about a lot of these artists, they mirrored what they do after him. So Michael Jackson. My number 5, Courtney, you mentioned him, Stevie Wonder. Okay, first of all, he's blind. Okay, if we haven't forgotten that already, he's blind. I play 4 instruments, the harmonica. I've seen a video of him playing the drums. I don't know how you do that. I mean, just to be able to play the piano and sing, to me, is amazing. His music goes ages. I mean, there was a moment in high school that I was listening to the greatest of Stevie Wonder while I was doing my homework. It was just like one of those, you can still put it on now. Like my daughter will enjoy it. It's just his music goes so far beyond 100 million records sold, 25 Grammys, a lot of the accolades that he has. We know that he will always go down as one of the best musically inclined. Being blind, I think, is something that we take for granted, but just what he's able to do, that means his senses are so keen that he can do all of these things with his fingers and with his voice. So that's my top 5. Honorable mention, James Brown. I was trying to see where to put James Brown in there. I know he's the king of soul. I also had Kurt Franklin in there too, because Kurt Franklin, when you talk about gospel, when you talk about, like Al said, bridging that gap, there is no one that I can think like him, being able to bridge the gap the way that he did and not really sing. The dude wasn't singing anything.
Right.
It really don't sound that good. I mean, he's just one of those people that brings all the pieces together. He's worked with all types of artists. He's been able to show, like, hey, just because this is gospel and just because you guys don't like it, I'm gonna keep doing it. He's been continuing to do what he does for so long. It's like it doesn't even matter that people don't agree. It doesn't matter that if you don't like it, so what? If it's bringing the Lord glory and if it's helping bring people into the kingdom, like, what? Why is everybody so up in arms about it? So that was another one. Then I had Biggie, Tupac, and Jay-Z. But I'm thinking, like, how do I put them in this list? I can't put them above any of these people. So they were honorable mentions. But I think all 3 of those have the greatness in the hip hop and the rap game. So they definitely I got to pay my respects to them. So that's music artists. We had some similar, we had some different. But that was another great list right there. Anything anybody else wanted to add on?
When Mr. Sutter said, what's John P. Key, first thing in my mind was like, from Durham, North Carolina. we gonna clap like you from Durham, North Carolina. Clap your hands like you from Durham. That's what I was thinking in my head the whole time.
That was a good one. That was a good list right there. Terrence says, dang, I forgot about Stevie. Man, Stevie goes ages.
6 years of music, man.
And he's still making music. We may not hear it as often as other music, but he's still making music. So we're gonna round it out here. We are over time, but we're gonna round it out here with comedians, top 5 comedians. This was another tough one, man, because you think about all these comedians and just I just remember how they've made me laugh and how I cherish the way that they do, where they use their craft. So we're gonna start with Al first. Al, if you are ready for the list, we're gonna start with you. Top 5 comedians.
All right, so let me start with my number 1. I think, and this guy has transcended comedy and has brought comedy, but then brought the racial aspect to light, and that would have to be Dave Chappelle. From if you look at, there was a comedian named Dick Gregory, but Dick Gregory was an activist as well.
and some of the things he talked about. I really think Chappelle has kind of taken that mantle of a Dick Gregory and brought that in his comedy. Even if you looked at some of his stuff on the Chappelle show, we laugh about it, but there was some serious context in that particular show. Just his talent in general, and just how he makes people of all colors, everybody come together. Man, it's got to be Chappelle. That'd be number one on my list. Number two, I like a guy by the name of Ricky Smiley. Now, I got introduced to Ricky Smiley when BET had a show called Comic View. And he was the host, and he used to always do like the church stuff, which was hilarious to me. And how he had the grandmother, and they had the baptism, and had the song "Take Me to the Water," and then to be baptized, and we all understood what time it was. But I had a CD that I brought. Matter of fact, I was at a Boy Scout camp, and we was listening to Chappelle, and then I played Ricky Smiley, and his prank calls were hilarious. With the that was, to me, that was off the chart hilarious. So Ricky Smiley would be number two. The next one would be Bernie Mac. The first time I saw Bernie Mac, I was 14. I heard of him. I seen him in shows, but I never seen his comedy. So then I saw the Kings of Comedy, and me and my mom was watching it, and the joke he had was about one of his sons. Would you like some milk and cookies? And that was just that. And then he said some other things in there, but that stuff. But Bernie Mac, classic, and his classic and his raw and uncutness about stuff, man, was just superb. Like he was very good. And then his show, the Bernie Mac show, was funny. And he always sat in that little comfortable recliner and was like, "America, you see these kids? They getting on my last nerves. And it's lucky that they related to me. I'll throw that tail out."
Bust their head to the white meat show.
But the head to the white, yeah, he was cutting up. So Bernie Mac would be number three. Number four, I'm gonna take it back old school. And the guy had a show called Sanford and Son, Red Fox. I mean, and some of his stand-ups and like I'm older now, so I understand what he was saying. Especially watching Sanford and Son, you appreciate those type of shows, and just his comedy was amazing. Like he had you falling out laughing on the floor, dying laughing. Number five is going to have to be Eddie Murphy, and the movies that when he was coming up in the 80s, the 48-hour movie, Beverly Hills Cop. Hey, those were great movies, man. But like that, Eddie Murphy, that Raw was nice. That movie Raw was very funny.
Yeah. That's what that was like the first one that I seen where I was like, man, comedians are they're for real. This is a real thing. I mean, they bring that to your household, make everybody laugh. I'm definitely with you.
And they cut loose back then. Like now you can't, comedians got to be careful what kind of material they bring. But back then, 10 years ago, everything was on the table. We gonna bring it on cut up. So
definitely. Did you have any honorable mentions? Anyone that?
Oh man, this one just came to mind. That's the honorable mention. One of them was George Carlin. From New York City. George Carlin was good. And Kevin Hart. That's my honorable, but I couldn't. These other comedians,
you can't put them up there.
I can't. Yeah, Kevin's still building a legacy right now. But those two, George Carlin and Kevin Hart.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do my five, and I had a few honorable mentions also. So my number one, and again, you gotta pay respect to those that laid the groundwork and that built it to and that kind of opened that door. Richard Pryor, which I wasn't allowed to see probably his But now when I go back and I have watched it, you could just tell that a lot of comedians mirrored off of him. He talked about his life. He talked about stuff that he actually went through. Some of the stuff was wild, but it's stuff that he went through, and he was able to put it all out there, put it all on the table, no matter how outlandish it was, no matter how stupid he looked. He made people laugh. And then the other part of it is he was able to go, which, you didn't see a lot of guys with a lot of comedians with TV shows, but he was the one that took it to movies. You talk about all the movies he was in and how he was able to say, like, comedians can act, comedians can do all these other things, not just be here and do stand-up. And then that's when all of these other, comedians started getting these, these opportunities and started getting TV shows, later on down the line. So Richard Pryor was a huge, huge part. And a lot of comedians will say Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was why I got started. Richard Pryor was why I got into this. So I got to go number one, Richard Pryor. Number two, Eddie Murphy, man. Raw. And one of the best movies of all time, Coming to America, man.
Yeah.
And he was able to play 5 roles in a movie. You talk about Nutty Professor 1 and 2. His range was so vast that he could just say he could say one word and you would crack up laughing. But when it came to Coming to America, man, that's just a classic. That's one of my favorite movies. So I got to go with Eddie Murphy at number 2. Number 3, Al, you mentioned him, Bernie Mac. Man, when in the Kings of Comedy, I think a lot of people already knew of him, but when Kings of Comedy came out and I seen that, and then he got the TV show, which was hilarious. He was the last one out of the Kings of Comedy, to get the TV show. Most of them already had it. D.L. Hughley already had his. I think Cedric the Entertainer had his briefly. But Bernie Mac, one of the funniest guys, his voice, his delivery, it was just one of a kind. And he could have you laughing. The Milk and Cookies, that's the classic. Anytime anybody hears Milk and Cookies, they gonna laugh because that was you ever heard of. Number 4, Martin Lawrence.
Oh yeah,
Martin. I could turn on any episode of Martin, and I would be laughing right after the credits in that first scene. I would be laughing. You think about all the people that he kind of put on. Brother Man from the 6th floor. You think of Murray, not Murray, but Tracy. What's his name? Tracy Murray, not Tracy
Morgan. Tracy Morgan.
Yeah. On there. You think
Hustle
about
Man.
all Hustle Man. Yeah. You think about Tommy. I mean, like
Tommy.
the way he did the comedy, which it hurts that show never really got that finale like we all wanted, but hopefully that may come back with something that would be great. So I got to go with Martin. My number 5, Dave Chappelle, man. Dave Chappelle, he really wasn't. I considered him goofy for a while, but now with this past few years, with this coming back, also with Chappelle's show. Man, I was watching the Rick James skit the other night. I was like, this is classic. It's classic comedy. So some of my honorable mentions, I had Chris Rock. Chris Rock, to me, he was funny in movies, but I don't know. For some reason, I just never really considered him like in my top 5. I had Robin Williams. I watched a Robin Williams stand-up, and Robin Williams was letting it go. Robin Williams wasn't the PG Mrs. Doubtfire in that comedy. He was letting it fly. And Cedric the Entertainer, man, always got me laughing. And then Cat Williams.
Oh man,
any Cat Williams special, you will die laughing. And then I had Kevin Hart, but I can't put Kevin Hart in that top 5 yet. I think he's there. I mean, he's doing everything. He's got some of everything going on. Some of the best specials, the highest grossing comedian, over the past couple of years. So, but I can't put him in that top 5 as of yet. But that's mine. We'll go to you, Courtney.
All right, some of the same ones, Ben and Al, that you guys had. So I'll go through this real quick. Richard Pryor, number 1. I think he's the GOAT of comedians. I mean, as you said, he bridged the gap from being a stand-up comedian to the movies. And this was back in the 70s, 60s, 70s. So he was comedian, actor, writer, storyteller, and to me, just the greatest of all time. Body of work. He won an Emmy. He even won Grammys for his comedy. So he's a 5-time Grammy Award winner. He was named Rolling Stones and Comedy Central top stand-up comedian of all time. So Richard Pryor, like you said, I couldn't watch his comedy either growing up. So, but we did sneak a little bit because his comedy was so raw. It was so on point, and he was talking about things that we would think to say, but he did it anyway. He said it back then. So some of the stuff you can't, like you said, it's the culture right now is very PC, so you can't really say a lot of that stuff without getting some backlash. So Richard Pryor to me is the GOAT of comedians. Number 2, Eddie Murphy. To go from, again, he's another comedian actor. He's also a singer too. Don't forget about Eddie Murphy's singing career. He played in Dreamgirls. He was nominated for an Oscar for Dreamgirls as well. Saturday Night Live. He was one of the first blacks. It's not the first black comedian on Saturday Night Live. And he said classic movies, Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America. I mean, Coming to America has so many quotables. I mean, you watch that movie today, you can say, you just know that movie. You can just quote out any of those sayings in that movie. It's so good. That's such a good one. Plus, he played. He had a lot of voices. He did a lot of voices. Shrek. He crossed over from stand-up comedian to with the Beverly Hills Cops and Coming to America. Then he played in a lot of the biggest cartoon movies. So he's well known, and he's making his comeback too. So Eddie Murphy to me is number 2. Number 3, got to go with Chris Rock. I love Chris Rock, man. I mean, producer, comedian, director, writer, actor. He's also Saturday Night Live alum. He won multiple awards himself. He was also had his own show on HBO, and his stand-up comedy was on HBO too. So for him to go from Saturday Night Live to HBO, I definitely got to have Chris Rock on there. To me, he's one of the funniest comedians of all time. And so number 4, Dave Chappelle. We mentioned his show. I was a huge fan of the Dave Chappelle show. I mean, that show, all the things that, all the skits that he did, the sketch comedy, it was at his best. As you said, he did the Rick James, he did Prince, he did the Black White Supremacist. That was so funny, even though it was a crazy skit. That was one of the funniest skits. Dave Chappelle is one of the most genius comedians of all time. He's so socially aware. With all the things that he's, what he talks about with racism and things like that. So I gotta go Dave Chappelle. Number 5, Martin Lawrence. I can't keep him off the list because he was the original host of Def Comedy Jam, also producer, writer, actor, and he was a Golden Glove boxer. Just to throw that out there. I mean, he was a boxer. A really good boxer as well. Plus, the Martin Show, classic. Funny show. As you said, I think it's one of the best shows, written shows I've ever seen. And he has a lot of classic movies too. You got Bad Boys, 1, 2, and 3. His stand-up comedies were funny. Run Tell That, You So Crazy. So those, and then the five I wanted to mention with the 5 I named, they didn't just do your regular stand-up comedy where they talked about, their family and stuff like that. They talked about a lot of different issues, social issues, and they weren't afraid to let it all go. Starting from Richard Pryor all the way down to Dave Chappelle. So those are my top 5.
Great top 5 right there. Michael Bella mentions, I see no female comedians on the list. I'm sorry. I couldn't put any of them in there. I know you got Monique, you got some more. Those are probably the 2 I can think of off the top of the dome. But you got a great point. Mocha Bella is always going to say where the females at. She can keep it real. All right, Dad, we can bring it to you to round this out.
All right. Well, you guys covered a lot of the the greats already. It's kind of hard to come up with someone different, but I'm gonna try. I'm the same. First of all, I got to go with Richard Pryor. To me, he's he's a trendsetter when it comes to the comedy, from stand-up to movies, and I mean, this was, you know, before I wasn't always saved, so I was able to watch it.
Right.
But you know, some of his lines were really, you know, over the edge, but we just laughed till we couldn't laugh anymore. And you know, live on the Sunset Strip, I mean, this stand-up was hilarious. And I can never forget that one where he talked about walking through the woods. He said, you know, he said it's the difference between a white person and a black person walking in the woods. Walk in the woods, he'll see a snake, he goes, snake, he just step over to the side. White person walk through the woods, he says, snake, and turn, bow, right in the tree. Get that stand up. And when you talk about trendsetter, you know, you had mentioned Eddie Murphy is number 2 on my list. But, you know, when you talk about coming to America and the characters, you know, you got to think about Richard Pryor. You know, I don't know if you guys remember Which Way Is Up, but this guy, I mean, he played the pop, plus he played the preacher, plus he played the guy that was the straight guy. I mean, this movie was hilarious. I mean, I just cannot forget how, you know, how authentic he came in with portraying these characters and how he did such a great job where you actually thought, you know, it was somebody different. So I really, you know, have to give homage to Richard Pryor. And, you know, one of the all-time favorites, you talking about classics, is Car Wash. Man, when he played the pimp in Car Wash, I mean, that was something that was so funny. And you had the Pointer Sisters in there. So he was a trendsetter when it came to stand-up and then going to the big screen. That's my number 1. Number 2 is Eddie Murphy. A lot of, you know, we've already mentioned his movies, his accolades, and how funny he was. And I can never forget, you know, when we start back at his early movies like 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cops, you know, the series, and, you know, and all he played with the Nutty Professor. And so it goes on and on and on. But I think Eddie Murphy, and he actually attested this himself, is how a lot of his, especially in stand-up and even the movies, he really mimicked Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was the trendsetter. I mean, he started it all. Number 3, Bernie Mac's on the list. I got to give Bernie Mac, you know, all the credit. Bernard Jeffrey McCullen. Got to give him some props. You know, the Players Club. I mean, that was hilarious. Man, that thing, I could look at that movie every day, all day. Guess Who? He was great in Guess Who's too, which was Coming to Dinner, which was kind of flipped the other way around. Far as Who Came to Dinner. So all of his movies were great. Stand Up was great. King's of Comedy, you guys already mentioned that. So I won't continue to go into that. I know the hours is well spent. But now I'm going to go way back. Before you guys were even born, before you even thought of about being born. Leroy Flip Wilson Jr.
Whoa.
Yes,
Whoa, legend.
Okay, yes.
Legend. You're talking about a TV show before it even thought of, you know, African Americans having TV shows. And when you're talking about, you know, mimicking and dressing up as women, I'm talking about Geraldine. I mean, when he played that character, I mean, that was hilarious. You're talking about a comedian, an actor, television host and television show. I mean, the Flip Wilson show, when we got excited back in the day to look at the Flip Wilson show. I mean, everybody wanted to see that. He won 2 Emmys as well. So that kind of, what's that, 4?
Yeah, 4.
Okay. So a lot of people mentioned, you know, these young guys coming up now. It's kind of hard for me to get into them. I have to look at Martin Lawrence. You know, Martin Lawrence, his show, sitcom show, and one of my wife and our favorite. You know, we can look at this show over and over again. It's Welcome Home, Roscoe. We love the movie. I mean, Martin Lawrence, he is hilarious in that movie. And then, you know, so I gotta, you know, let him come. You mentioned a lot of the things he had did already before, so that would be my number 5.
Okay. I mean, we all had similar. I think Richard Pryor was the one that really, you know, kicked it off. Shout out to my man David Wilkes, co-worker. He says, "Here come the judge. Here come the judge." But I mean, it's so great that we could have similars and differences. You know, when we talked about these 3 topics tonight. But I like the Flip Wilson. That's something that I haven't watched that much of. But man, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Bernie Mac, Martin Lawrence, a lot of those are similarities. Really a good conversation. When we talk about this new group now coming up, Kevin Hart, everybody check out the Dion Cole. It's pretty funny on Netflix. Netflix is great for stand-up. But anything anybody else wanted to add? Any other honorable mentions? I know Taryn mentioned Amy Schumer if you talk about females, but I think the only 2 I can really think of is Samore and Monique. You know, when it comes to the female comedians.
I think another one we need to throw in there too, and when he was in his heyday was Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was good. So.
Definitely. I mean, Cosby Show, classic. I mean,
right.
Whatever you think about him now, you know, but you gotta mention Bill Cosby. You know, I mean, for real. I mean, this guy. I mean, he was. When you look at family shows and what you thought, like the way the show was constructed, you had a lawyer wife, doctor husband, and they had 5 kids. You know, and premise of the show was really was great. I still watch Cosby Show. I ain't ashamed to say it. I still watch it.
Yeah, I still watch it. Yeah.
Think of all the people that got their start. I mean, the list is endless. That along with A Different World, Jada Pinkett, Erica Alexander. I mean, the Cole from Martin was on there.
The
list of people.
Keisha Martin, Sinbad,
It's he put a lot of people on. Now we know we go fast forward to now, you know, everything that's happened, but still, what he's done for the Black community will not be erased. How he's helped bring some of these actors on that are still acting now because they got that opportunity on one of his shows is great. So I definitely thought about Bill Cosby as well, so that was a good one. But man,
Steve Harvey too.
Yeah,
Steve Harvey, he
can be mentioned up there. I think. You know, he had his own talk show. I mean, this guy had like 20 jobs at one time. Family Feud, and then he had his own show, Steve Harvey show, and Cedric was on that show. So, you know, that's another one that you can probably mention as well.
Yeah. But awesome conversation. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As we do at the end, we always ask what do people have coming up for this week. For me, personally, not having an additional show, I don't think, but you know, really continuing to push, man. BS3 Radio, all the great things we're doing. Courtney doing great shows. Al High doing the same. My dad and my mom working on theirs, but you've been great with the YouTube. You've been great being able to put your input on there. But Courtney, what do you have coming up this week?
Yeah, just had just last week, just had a 3-hour show. Wasn't planning on doing a 3-hour show, but last week, but the conversation was flowing. I know I had a lot of guests on there, so shout out to everyone that tuned in. You know, I had a food blogger, one of my good friends, Erica Santos. So check her out at No Strawberries. Erica is her blog. So had her on, talked a little fancy football with Jeff Lambert, talked New York Jets, talked some NFL. So that was just this Saturday. So last Saturday. So this Saturday got coming up. Probably gonna be talking about all the team sports finally coming back. At least they're going to be starting. We got the NBA, WNBA, Major League Baseball this week, so probably get into a little bit of those sports there that's coming up. So we'll be talking about that. That'll be on Saturday. So follow at Get the Real Deal on Twitter and BS3Radio.com.
Definitely. Courtney, what do you have coming up this week? I'm sorry, Al. I just talked to Courtney. Al.
So, current episode out right now is with Derek Darkus. That was this is my first athlete that I interviewed. This interview with Derek Darkus, a professional basketball player overseas, is hilarious. I knew it was good content, but I didn't know playing it back. It was like some of the stuff he was saying, he was real about it. Like, I'm gonna take, like, his competition role was like, I'm gonna take your soul. Like, that type. This brother was real. Like, it was very great episode with Derek Darkus. So definitely check that out. This week coming up, I am releasing an episode with the guy's name is Tyrus McGee Sr. He is a high school basketball coach in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area. And he got his first. This is his first head coaching job at Live Oak High School. So we talk a little bit about basketball, the anticipation of the NBA season. Talked about 2 big time players coming out of the state of Louisiana, and Jalen Cook and Reese Beckham. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Should be up in the next 24 hours.
Okay, awesome. And also let me say this: Tyan, who hasn't been on for the past couple of weeks, his sister passed away, so he is right now in Georgia dealing with that. So continue prayers for him and his family, because this is tough to deal with. It's not, death is not easy. So continue to pray for him. Dad, what do you have coming up this week? I know you're doing the OPOD duties as always.
Yeah, OPOD duties, and also a physical therapist and nurse and doctor. I got my plate full, but mom is recovering well. She's doing well. So we're just, excited about what has us, and I'm just be tuning in to you guys, man. You guys got some great shows coming on this week, so we're gonna be tuning in with you, and we're still working on our podcast and our book. Circle of Love should be released here soon, but that's where we are now. We're just excited to be a part and support you guys.
Definitely. And each week, man, we've been doing a Zoom call, a family Zoom call, which has been great. I mean, I urge all of you, you can't be around your families if they're out of state, do a Zoom call. I mean, you can get on there like 40 minutes. You can have a great conversation, check in with people. I'm gonna try to do that also with some of my other friends, because we can see each other face to face. So I'll recommend everybody do that. But man, great conversation. We was going to talk about Major League Baseball, but we definitely do not have time tonight. So we're going to put that next week. We can talk about top 5 Major League Baseball players. Major League Baseball starting Thursday. So that's coming up real soon. We'll also talk about who we think is going to go to the playoffs. So that'll be a great conversation coming up for next week. Thank you all for tuning in and joining in. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click that bell. So Courtney Harden.
Thanks for the conversation. This was a really good one. So really enjoyed it. So have a good night, everyone.
All right, Al.
Hey, thank y'all again for tuning in. Check us out, BS3Radio.com. Grace, love, and disrespect your senses.
Definitely. Dad.
Yeah, thanks again for letting this old man chime in and bring you some choices that you probably never thought of. But it's always a pleasure to be with you guys. Be safe, take care of your family, and stay focused on doing what's right.
Definitely. You guys, everybody have a good night. Have a good day. Make sure, again, subscribe, click that bell. God bless. God is love. Be safe. Put your mask on. This will be over before you know it. Unless you live in New York, it's already over. So